Right. Now we're going to be talking about powering up prospecting. And again, we're going to be talking about AI and automation. We're going to sort of focus a little bit more on the data side and sort of with a CRM lens this as well. I think making sure we can keep track of all the data that we're sourcing and really making best use of it. Recently, HubSpot, who we're partnering with on this event, they run their inbound conference at the beginning of September, and they had lots of new updates and announcements, which we'll cover a little bit in this session. But they talked about, sort of ironically, considering the event's called Inbound, but how inbound's not really working anymore, or certainly inbound as we knew it, which coincided with the launch of a new playbook called Loop Marketing. So we're going to find out a little bit more about that, and then just looking at what is working, and looking at how sort of companies are able to adapt their approach to prospecting to really work and making the most out of AI. Joining me on the panel today, I'll let everyone introduce themselves, but we've got a good blend of perspectives from HubSpot, from Propeller, and also from an agency who'll be sharing, I guess, what they're doing, what's working, and some practical tips for getting the most out of AI.
Hi, everyone. Richard Holland from HubSpot. I run our partner sales team in the UKI, Middle East and Africa. Spent the last kind of 10 years of my career doing partner sales across the CRM industry, and started out at Oracle. And actually, I've got a story about that later, and how prospecting that I learned all the way back at Oracle and now the new marketing playbook are kind of the same thing. So I'll talk to you about that in a bit.
Hi, I'm Rosie Stano, Senior Product Consultant. I head up new business and growth at Candyspace. We're a digital product agency. We specialise in the design, build and optimisation of websites, apps and e-commerce stores.
Hi, I'm Sydney, Account Director at Propeller on the growth marketing team. I'm leading client strategy and delivery of their outbound activity.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We'll look forward to get stuck in. Richard, with the Loop Marketing Playbook, I guess it chimes very much with the focus for today, which is, I think, a big focus on AI efficiency, but also building in human authenticity as a key focus. Do you want to just share with the room a little bit about what Loop Marketing is all about?
Sure. So maybe before I start with what loop marketing is, maybe I should start with why it is. So HubSpot went to market initially with a proposition called inbound marketing. And our plan was always to provide a playbook for marketeers to reach customers, and then we'd create the tool for them to be able to do that. And that went very well. But actually, marketing started to get a bit stale, a bit samey, right? And for you guys, for agencies, actually got a bit annoying because customers thought I think they knew it all, right? They don't need advice. They know that inbound playbook. And then AI came along and kiboshed everything, right? So now 60% of Google searches result in 0 clicks. So SEO, if it's not dead, it's on life support. They're getting out the defibrillators. It just doesn't really work very well anymore. And also the way that customers do their research has changed. They're not researching in terms of like looking through large volumes of information. They're asking questions. And so, again, creating lots of content in the hope of driving traffic to your website, it just doesn't work. So the inbound playbook is a thing of the past, but it's not all bad news. Actually, the benefit of AI is that it is incredible for conversion. You can be hyper-personalized. We're talking now about, instead of being personalized, it's about being personal. So personalized being like, I know your name and maybe what industry you're in. And personal being, I know what you're looking for. I can see your journey on your website. I have captured data and intent from all the unstructured data and emails, conversations, etc. I know whether you've just done, one of the previous speakers talked about like leadership changes. I know that about you. And so I can be personal to you and your needs. So that's really what the Loop Marketing Playbook is about supporting, right? And the way it works is, firstly, you start out by expressing who you are. So in order to do that, you need to have a deep understanding of your customer and your ICP and have that very well defined. And to do that very well, you want to know your existing customers really deeply. I've worked at companies, $500 million companies, where I've asked the question, can I get a breakdown of all of our customers, all of our top spending customers by industry. And that has been a very difficult question for them to answer, and has been in some sales ops backlog for weeks and weeks on end. So firstly, you've got to get the right data in place so that you can answer that kind of question, understand your customers. And then we talked about authenticity in the previous section. What's your voice? What's your perspective? What's your brand identity? And have that really clearly defined. So that's step one. Step two is then tailoring that message to your audience. That from a prospecting perspective, that's one-to-one. But with marketing, it's tailoring it at scale. But again, AI is the big unlock here, because you can now deliver hyper-personal messaging, one-to-one personalization at great scale. So that's step number two, is tailoring that message to your audience. Step number three is now amplifying that. And it's really about meeting your customers where they are. And I think somebody else said that as well. There's a lot of good synergy between these sessions today. HubSpot's made some big investments in people-driven channels. Because again, people are asking questions. They want trusted sources. So people-driven channels like YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, these are huge now. HubSpot in the last year has doubled our own inbound traffic from people-driven channels. And it's also about AI optimization, and perhaps I can talk about that later and how that works. But that's a slightly different game to SEO. And again, it's about meeting customers where they are. And then the final thing is about continually iterating on that message and adapting as you go. Again, AI is the big unlock here. It allows you to fail fast, change things quickly, adapt, and also do testing before you run messages. And actually AI test them at scale. So that's the way the loop marketing works, kind of at a high level.
Great. And I guess sort of talking about the linear path that prospects used to follow, we used to find a typical approach might include whether it's email, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's calling, to varying degrees of personalization dependent on what was manageable with the time and the focus you've got. But there would obviously be a follow-up process and then a nurture process through to trying to convert them into either a meeting or an opportunity. And I think certainly that's something that obviously a lot of agencies probably have applied or continue to apply. Rosie, at Candyspace, in terms of your approach to prospects when you're trying to sort of create those conversations with new targets, have you found anything has stopped working from that sort of process you were going through, or anything new that's now replaced that to really get cut through?
Yeah, definitely. I think as a new business team, we're definitely under more pressure to deliver in-market opportunities than ever before, at a time where we probably have less resource available and there's still so much indecision in the market as well. Traditionally, we've relied upon channels like email and phones. Those have worked well for us. I still think those are really, really important channels, but they are harder to cut through on. Likewise, I would also say that we're definitely seeing less people willing to exchange data to download reports and more longer form content. So I think Alex mentioned it on the last panel around video content. That's definitely an area that we've doubled down in. And particularly thinking about more kind of bite-sized video content, stuff that's a bit more human and authentic rather than just kind of polished video content too. So I guess an example is we've got a few landing pages at the moment where traditionally we would have had more like report style content. And actually, we've got a couple of short interviews, like sound bites, a little bit of a narrative around that. So we're still telling that story, but it's in a way that's kind of easier to digest. And we've seen sort of really good engagement from that. I think things like events, definitely, again, it was mentioned on the last panel about that sort of human in-person connection. That's not going away anytime soon. So definitely that's a really big focus of ours. And then I guess more specifically from like an AI perspective, a couple of things that we're doing. So intent data is definitely an area that we're focusing on a bit more. So we use Zoom Info to sort of highlight particular service areas that our prospects might be searching for. We design and build websites on various CMS platforms. So for us, we've got an interest in terms of the technologies that people are either using or searching for. So that's definitely part of our outreach, kind of tailoring our message around that. It's not perfect. Sometimes it gets it wrong, but I guess it's a good starting point as to maybe what are the topics that might best resonate with people, good conversation starters, and what are those accounts to prioritize. And then certainly with email, I guess for a number of years, we've always strived to, create those to be as personalized as possible, even if we're doing it at sort of a larger scale, at least have a line or so in there that is more tailored I would say historically to someone's persona and what we perceive their pain points to be or what's kind of going on in their industry. And I think you mentioned it a moment ago around sort of that hyper personalization and being able to do that on a one-to-one basis and at scale. And that's something that, again, it needs that human lens, I think, to look over, but it's enabling us to do things that I think we just couldn't do sort of at that quantity internally before.
Great. And from that personalization, doing it at scale, Sydney, you work with a range of clients and I guess targeting senior decision makers, CMOs, marketing directors. What have you seen that's been resonating? How have you got sort of cut through from the campaigns and activity you're doing? And how do you do that personalization at scale?
So very similar to what Rosie was just saying, whereas we might have traditionally focused on email, Propeller has always advocated reaching your prospects where they are. That's why there's a growth marketing team within a PR agency. And we're really getting that feedback from clients a lot lately too. So not just email, they're asking about social, they're asking about running more events. So clients who when we started thought social was a little bit cringe, they're much more involved in what can we do in those areas. And AI is really helping us kind of move from this personalized content that we're creating. It's very human-led, creating content and being able to repurpose that across multiple platforms so that we're able to do it in a very repeatable way for the client so that there's always something fresh for them to talk about. When it comes to speaking and the emails that we're running, like Rosie said, again, sorry to copy all your points, we are looking now to more personalized, tailored emails. And with HubSpot, it's really great that there's a lot of insights available in the platform. So I think one of the themes this year was unifying the data. And we definitely feel that as we're using the platform, that it's all within there. So we're able to make decisions and send these tailored messages from a central place, which has been really helpful to the work we're doing. And clients see great results. I'm not going to say that every email we send is one-to-one personalized. We still do one-to-many emails, which I think a lot of sales places still will because timing and they do still work, but being able to do those one-to-many with those personalized insights into smaller segments or lists is great. I think in terms of pitfalls to watch out for when we're using AI, and I've always said this about HubSpot as well, is that it's only as good as the information that you put into it. So Rich, you spoke a bit about defining the ICPs, so the ideal customer profile. So making sure that and the strategy is set before you start plugging things into the AI. Otherwise, I think it's fine to fail, but with AI, you're just failing faster and spending more time. And nobody wants to spend too much time going in the wrong direction. So
great. And I think when we talk about prospecting, I think and particularly with AI, I think a lot of people will sort of jump to the thought of, right, is AI going to now run a load of those sequences for me? Is it going to do the email copy, which I think the previous session talked about some of the pitfalls with that and where the personalization can go a bit askew. Actually, I think what I've found certainly from looking at some of the recent updates with HubSpot and with data, and I guess I sort of from a personality profile, I guess you've got, we did a exercise in the office where you'll highlight people whether they're red, yellow, green, blue, dependent on profiles. I've got like an inner blue that like is a subconscious one that I don't do day in, day out. But it means that when I do get stuck into a database, I get like a little bit sort of drawn into it and then get all very analytical with the segmentation. And it drives me mad when I've got a big database and data's all over the shop and you can't categorize it very well. I think for me, the real value add for prospecting in AI is when you can really use that understanding of the intel in your data and just get it structured well. For example, Propeller's target clients, our ICPs, are typically agencies, but we also work with ad tech, martech, and technology businesses, and they all fall under a very similar sector category. So to try and get them streamlined to adjust the messaging so that you're reaching agencies with messaging that's agency appropriate versus an ad tech is a nightmare. But I must admit, just playing about with some of the latest HubSpot stuff, we're able to enrich data, and it could run away and sort of segment and do some deeper research, which would then organize companies much more I guess, much more cohesively for me. So that was one of the things. I guess, unfortunately, I've got the challenge that a lot of BD people have is then I get busy with doing the day job and I've got to get on with prospecting, and then I run out of time to do any more on that. So I've got halfway through doing that and used up probably too many credits. And then it's one that it's right. How do we really build on that? Which is where I rely on the team to nudge that forward. I guess, Sydney, you've been looking at this, but also looking at some AI integrations. I guess we're looking at how CRM can play alongside Claude or ChatGPT. What's been the bits that you've found, I guess, in terms of from a data enrichment point of view? Where have been the gains from sort of some of the new advancements?
So with clients, we're consistently curating these high quality data lists. But to build on Alex's car analogy from earlier, it's like buying a new car off the lot. The minute you drive it off, it loses value. The minute you upload a data list, somebody's left their job, somebody's moved around. So in terms of the enrichment, what's really been helpful is that HubSpot which is what we're using day to day, is surfacing those insights. So even on the recent upgrades, things like being able to know from an auto response if somebody's moved, if somebody's on holiday, and bringing those to the forefront has been so useful. In terms of data hygiene, we've been working a lot with the Claude and ChatGPT. I'm not loyal to either. We'll switch between them in terms of cleaning up lists and categorizing and pulling in additional information to help make sure that we're really making these targeted segments or for better outreach when we're speaking to our prospects or clients' prospects as well. We would get from clients quite often when they would come on board is that their data just did not look clean. I don't know how many of you here, it's just like a show of hands, how many of you could have cleaner data right now but don't have the time to clean it up? Yep. I think that's everybody. So in terms of data hygiene, I think that's where AI is bringing in the biggest aims for us, because there's nothing, if the data in your system isn't clean, then anything that you do with that is not going to yield the results that you want. So that's been a real big focus for us. And luckily tools mean it's gone are the days of manually finding and merging duplicates. I don't know how many people have spent hours doing that, but it is not a fun task. So we're very thankful for these wins here.
Rosie, I think when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you've been dabbling with integrations and you've put together one with Claude, which I think you've been working on for a few months. And do you want to talk us through what you've been able to achieve with that and what benefits that's had to the business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, exactly that. We built an integration between the Claude interface and then like back-end sort of deal and lead data within HubSpot, kind of like creating our own sort of chat-enabled HubSpot sort of based off of our own data. I'll be honest, I think where I found it most useful has been from like a RevOps perspective. So things like understanding, I don't know, maybe it's been 5 days, 10 days since you've last spoken to a particular prospect, or maybe you're only speaking to 1 or 2 people at that organization and just highlighting maybe particular deals that might be at risk. Also from like an pipeline insights perspective, understanding things really quickly, like, I don't know, 20% of your deals are involving partner technologies, or this particular sector has sort of the highest contract value, but maybe it's taking slightly longer to convert. And so all of these insights that I think we can just sort of quickly understand and then action off the back of it, I think has been like, yeah, really useful for us. And like the other day, I mean, there was even an insight that we had that I didn't even ask for this. It said something like 70% of all of your deals in this particular service area are being managed by one single business development manager. Like, you might want to look at kind of workload management and is that kind of effective? And I thought, oh God, okay, I better get on the case with that one. But I think with all of these tools, you know, whether it's like ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, I think the ability to kind of like talk using natural language and kind of like how we are now, that's more conversational, I think is really useful. And I've certainly found it useful in terms of reporting and sharing those insights with the leadership team, because some of them might not be that involved in sales, but being able to talk in a language that's like accessible and they understand, like they've all got login details to our Claude integration and they don't know this, but I can see specifically what they're searching for in the tool. And honestly, with every single day, without a doubt, there'll be one director who'll go in and go, what's Rosie done in HubSpot today? How many new leads has she brought in this week? You know, what's closing? So yeah, there's nowhere to hide, that's for sure. But yeah, on a good note, it's great. It feels like there's sort of more buy-in from the leadership team in terms of what we're doing as a team and sort of an understanding of that. So that's been, yeah, really useful for us.
So that's a good one for all you sales leaders out there. Keep track of what your BD teams are up to. And Richard, in terms of obviously HubSpot seems to be doubling down on AI at the moment. What would you suggest are the key things that the teams can prioritize to really get more efficiency in the current time and current landscape?
Yeah, so data. Data is everything. It's not the most exciting thing. It's not as exciting as being in front of a customer and talking to them, but everything that we've talked about today relies on you having clean data and unified data critically. So what does that mean, right? A lot of what we talk about when we think about AI is either I'm querying something like ChatGPT and talking to it, or there's a customer-facing agent like a chatbot talking to my customers. But there's a third really big, important use case for marketing and sales, which is agents that are working for you at the weekend, overnight, to clean up your data continually. And this is huge for empowering everything that you want to do in terms of being personal with your customers, your prospects, when you're marketing to them. So we mentioned at Inbound, HubSpot brought out a ton of new features, 200 new features. Great. About half of them were agents that are no-code agents that are there to clean up your data. Things like one-click enrichment, right? So fixing duplicates, right? One click. Things that scour through your unstructured data or your calls, emails, etc., taking insights from them, and then using that to update your CRM records automatically. No human involvement. And then some that, again, are no code, but involve a little bit of human involvement. So one that I really liked, I started out my career as a BDR before I got into sales. And you can query Breeze Assistant and say, hey, for all of my top prospects, can you tell me if they've had any leadership changes or who their top 3 competitors are? And I'd like you to update the CRM, add a column in my little leads list, and add it to all of the records for all those accounts, and it'll just do it. It'll search through the internet and fill out where possible, and that's huge. The future of work is not AI replacing humans; it's hybrid teams with humans and agents working alongside each other. And the agents really empowering the human to be more effective, to automate things that they don't want to do, like doing research on who my customers' competitors are. And allowing them to be more effective. So it's really all about data. And the big part of that is using AI to help clean up your data, but also having, as best as you possibly can, unified data. We talk to customers across all kinds of industries, and on average, there's about 15 different apps across the go-to-market unit, from marketing, sales, and service. That is a lot of places that your data is sitting. That is by definition siloed data. Unless you are spending a fortune to build big AWS data lakes and asking Capgemini to build in for you, it's not great if you don't have a good, clear understanding of who your customers are, because your data is all over the place. So those are the 2 big things I would say: is get unified data as best as you can, limit the number of go-to-market apps that you have. And number 2 is use agents to spruce up that data, improve it, give you insights that your humans can then use to drive value.
It all sounds very exciting and great. I think having a team of data agents and Breeze assistants and everyone to help me do my job, and I think certainly surfacing those kind of insights feels like it will help on a day-to-day perspective in terms of getting more effective personalized prospecting, but also it guiding strategy going forward in terms of, we talked about getting targeting right. It's something that you can see all the benefits of that. I guess there's the risk of shiny tool syndrome. There's lots of tools out there that people are subscribing to and never get around to using. I guess across all platforms, people in the room, I think it's become more of a standard that people do have a CRM in place, but some will have upgraded and maybe have used HubSpot and not got the most out of it. We can talk about it being what you put in and getting the most out of it, but what can a business really do to make sure that you get the most out of all of this, and sort of in terms of building implementation plan, and also, I guess, key thing, adoption. It's making sure that your team are going to be using it in the way you need them to. how can we sort of ensure that? Rosie, what have you done at Candyspace in terms of being able to get marketing, business development, everyone in the business using HubSpot and using the tools around it?
Yeah, I think as it's been said before on both panels that, yeah, definitely having sort of clean data, good structured CRM in place. We love HubSpot, for that reason. Particularly thinking about like our Claude integration as well. It's only going to surface as good insights as the data that's feeding it. So that's sort of been a big focus of ours. But in terms of like AI and like adopting that across the agency, AI is one of our strategic pillars for this year. So every single department has considered how could we best utilize AI. And from a new business perspective, we've approached that from mapping what's typically the sort of an average sort of prospect's journey with us, and thinking about how we can streamline it, how we can personalize that, make that, a better process for them. But then also reflected internally, how can we improve our own like internal efficiencies around that? And then we focused on maybe just like a handful of core areas to focus on in the first instance. And I'll be honest, most of those have been more the kind of like admin side of things, clearing up data, personalizing, a few outreach emails, consolidating call notes, stuff like that. And I think where I'm quite excited to take it to next is around more of those intent signals and the triggers. We spoke about it earlier around, people changing jobs or kind of what's going on in the industry, and actually having that based off of our data and being able to give those really sort of like priority signals, I would say, as to like who to reach out to, kind of what the sort of message we should be tailoring to them. I think that's where it's going to get really exciting. And that's kind of, our big focus the year ahead, I'd say.
Great. And Sydney, when you've got a client that has no experience of using CRM or anything in terms of tools in place, how would you go about sort of planning for implementation around that?
I think they've done the best thing in terms of getting a partner to make sure that there is a structure in place. I think then it's about asking the question. So what are your top priorities? What are you looking to achieve? And then seeing where AI fits into that. I think there's a real danger of us kind of getting fatigued by the amount of platforms that are coming up, the amount of AI available. I think it was said earlier, the amount of data available. So just making sure that we're answering the questions that are of a priority to the business. And that is sometimes starts with the less exciting things like the data, but then moving from there into the enrichment and then into the prediction. So like you said, Rosie, like looking at these intent signals and just making sure it's clearly mapped out and brought in by the business. That it's no good if one person on your team is responsible for everything AI or one person is managing the CRM. We often do training across the teams to make sure that everybody's bought in. And we always hear, I know I'm using this, but I'm not using it as I should. And just a few tips mean that people do integrate it more and it becomes immediately more beneficial, because there is a cost to all of this. There is a cost to all the AI tools. There's a cost to HubSpot. So it's making sure that we're maximizing that investment for our prospects.
And I think certainly from working with Sydney, I know you need a discipline to it. I think I can be guilty of this. It's like you come up with a new idea and think, oh, right, if we could just find a way of creating this field and hacking this, then this would be great. And then Sydney will go, there's a best practice way of doing that. Doesn't avoid making a load of work for yourself down the line. Richard, in terms of where you've seen, I guess people adopt HubSpot but not get it right, what are the things that can go wrong? And ultimately, what would you recommend as the key steps to make sure someone starting with a new CRM or starting with HubSpot gets it right?
Yeah, CRM adoption is a big problem. So Gartner tells us that actually across the industry, CRM adoption is as low as 50%. So you spend a load of time, energy, and money buying a new platform, and then half of your users abandon it. And that's terrible, right? That's a terrible return on investment for you as leaders. And the number one reason for why CRM adoption is so poor is because of siloed data, right? Users don't trust that their data, and they can't find the information they need. They get frustrated and they stop using it. So first thing I would do is pick a partner to work with on this, to build out a roadmap as to where are my quick wins? What's the right platform for me? Is it truly a platform, right? Or is it a load of solutions stitched together that's still going to give me super fragmented data? Or is it a true single code based platform? So I would look at that number one. Number two, I would be looking at how I can use no-code agents that are I can use them. I'm not an amazing user of AI, but I can use these, right, to enrich my data, because everything starts with that, right? Even if I'm starting out from a very human-driven process perspective, if I've got good, clean, enriched data, my people can be more effective. And then the last thing I'd say is just from a more like human perspective, right? You guys need to really embrace AI in your own businesses first. So my team are like super users of AI now. They're incredible. And the things they're doing blows my mind. And the way that we are sharing, I think, is one of the reasons why. So what HubSpot did for our teams was they made a lot of investments training all of our employees on AI. And it was good. And they shared use cases and Gemini gems and all this kind of stuff that people could copy. But it was very, as it always is with like a corporate training, it was very tell. So what we started doing in my team is we run monthly workshops where the team take it in turn to share something that they've been experimenting with. But crucially, we do it together in the meeting, right? So we all will then replicate the use case ourselves in the meeting, tease out any problems that we've got, any teething issues. And by the end of it, everyone now has actually done this, right? It's the whole give a man to fish, you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. It's that analogy and it rings true. Even my slowest adopters are now incredible and using AI multiple times a day to do all sorts of things. So from a human element, I would say, make sure you're living and breathing it and find a way to get people actually using it. And then it'll be a lot easier to get your customers using it.
Great. And we can all go fishing. I think in terms of getting everyone warmed up for some Q&A, a quick raise of hands, who is currently using AI in your new business activity on a weekly or a monthly basis? Fair few of you. I think it looks like a fairly even split. Of those, how many of you actually feel like you're getting good effectiveness out of it? Is it actually working? Is it helping you? Or is it just actually adding to your list of things to try and work out and on the to-do list? Less confidence there. Anyone sort of want to fire a question at us? Jess, if you got...
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah, perfect. I think with Propeller, the benefit that we have is that as a PR agency, we've already got that in terms of we're already creating these great pieces of content for our clients, and we take that and use that on the growth marketing team. So we're either amplifying articles that are already out there, or we're creating these new real value add pieces, which aren't talking about us at all. They're talking about things that are happening in the industry, challenges that our clients are facing. And for each client, we produce this content so that when we're reaching out to prospects, we're leading with something genuinely valuable and not necessarily an ask, and opening those conversations and making sure that our clients are front of mind when it does become the right time for them to buy, which is, I think, timing is just such an issue. I think especially these days, people aren't necessarily always prospecting. There has to be a real need, but making sure that our clients are staying front of mind by making sure they're always seen as a leader, as a trusted vendor through this thought leadership. That's worked really well for us, and we see things come back around.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, I guess, as much as trying to personalize your approach to understand the company you're approaching. I think it's very much creating a value exchange as well. So I think certainly with the content, I mean, we've seen it works very well at Propeller, having the PR team switched on to the editorial agenda every day. So you're getting the latest insights in terms of what the media is interested in. and ultimately looking at what the pain points and challenges are. And then if you can layer that with prospect information around what their challenges, their sector and their company they're facing, then that can really give you the ability to create content that's actually going to create value and hopefully help with some of the headaches they've got, like right here, right now. Any other questions for you?
Sure, yeah. So I don't think the outbound playbook has changed very much in a very long time. And I don't think it's a bad thing because I actually don't think it's broken. The change that I mentioned in marketing is that marketing has become a lot more like prospecting now. Instead of working on traffic and volume, right, it's now more about that loop of continually iterating and personalizing your messaging. So what works from a prospecting perspective is kind of what we've talked about today. Having a really good, clear understanding of your ICP. Scattergun does not work, right? You must know where your message is going to resonate the best. Having a really tailored, personal approach to that. Meeting customers where they are. So like I said, I still do believe that phone is the highest conversion channel, but it's the highest conversion channel. If you just call someone out of the blue, they've never heard of you, your likelihood of getting a positive response isn't as good. But if you've dropped them a LinkedIn voice note, if they've seen a video that you posted, if you sent them a deeply personalized email first and then you finally call them, then your conversion rates are really high. And that's what, for example, HubSpot BDRs are doing a lot at the moment. We've seen our conversion rate go up dramatically since we implemented this new sort of AI-driven playbook, simply because we're across all these different personal channels, right, where customers are doing their now research. We're hitting them with messages that really resonate with their business, their problems. And then, we're connecting with them over the phone. And that's still the playbook that works, I think, honestly. But AI just kind of supercharges it, right? Allows us to do more, be more personal, do it more at scale. But the playbook still works.
I love whenever we get a comment about cold calling still working. I can see Rich fist pumping. Having done it for 2 decades myself, it's good to hear it's still going strong. But I guess we've certainly seen a difference. I think it's that cold calling perspective. That assumes it's cold and the person doesn't know you. I feel for me it's increasingly important to get into people's phone books now, so you get a name, so you're not worried that it's someone trying to get your security details or sort of get information on you. So I feel like bringing that all together is important. But I do love the cold calling celebrations there. We've got time for one final question before we go for coffee. Anyone want to put themselves forward? Yeah.
Is that for me?
Rosie, do you want to jump into that one?
Yeah, I think it's already been said. It kind of comes back to the targeting again. If you're having a scattergun approach and you're targeting lots of different people and you're relying purely upon AI to kind of deliver that message for you, then it's not going to resonate. But if you're still quite focused in terms of your outreach and you're using AI more to kind of come up with ideas and sort of stimulus, I think that's sort of been effective for us. So I still think it comes back to that like stage before that and being really focused and in terms of who you're targeting and why.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in like managing upwards. So if your leadership haven't figured this out yet, try to find use cases that you can drive efficiently within your team and prove the value of them, and then go to leadership with that and say, look, we want to invest more in this. So there's really simple things like, for example, anybody that is a HubSpot user that also has either a ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini account has the integration straight away. So you can go ham on that, right? You can use that, find really interesting ways of personalizing messages, querying your CRM database to get a clearer understanding of your ICP, and then bring that to your leadership and say, look, this is what I've been able to do with very limited tools. We need more investment. I've spoken to Propeller Group and they've recommended XYZ. That's probably how I would do it.
And I would just add that just speaking within the team as well. I think often with AI, somebody's doing something and somebody else is doing something else if you don't have that joined up approach. So even if it's not coming from the senior leadership internally and with your team, making sure that you are having that conversations. So when you do present it, as Rich said, there's not a couple different opposing ideas.
Great. Thanks so much for, I think, everyone sharing your sort of examples of what's working, some of the challenges there. I think that probably the thing that came through loud and clear is just good prospecting requires brilliant data. And I think certainly the movements with AI seems to really enhance the ability to enrich and segment your data and get insights that will help make that personalization more relevant. And I guess then looking at the adoption, making sure, I think the stats of 50% not using a platform that you have installed into your business and obviously have paid to help make everyone more efficient and effective. That's obviously something that you need to look at in terms of how you can improve that adoption level.
I'd say it's much higher with HubSpot.
Well, we can test that out with, we're all going out for coffee now. So feel free to pick up with Richard, Rosie or Sydney and myself upstairs. We've got half an hour now for coffee, but Richard, Rosie, Sydney, thanks so much for that. And we'll be back at 11.